All right, here we go. We are looking into the full moon in Leo coming in on February the 12th. I'm going to be going into some shadow work later in this video. I'm also going to be talking about the Leo-Aquarius axis. I'm also going to be talking about some other dynamic energies that are playing into this full moon and how to work with this incredibly magnetic and powerful full moon with expression of self, especially considering the collective unconscious that we all have Leo within our chart somewhere. We all can relate to the traits of Leo. During the full moons, I look at the shadow traits specifically so we can go deeper with our practice and look at some more of the shadow aspects to liberate ourselves. In this case, is going to be to find our sovereignty, our sense of self, as Leo does represent the sense of self. I'm going to go into all the traits and aspects, but first I'm going to go back into the new moon in Aquarius that we had, where we set intentions. If you are doing your practice, you may have set intentions during the new moon. You may have had a strong vision of your future. Now, this full moon is really inviting you to release what is getting in the way. Is there a bit of pridefulness? Is there a bit of egoic energy, or maybe a lot of stubbornness and a lot of pridefulness? Check in with the ego, check in with the pridefulness, check in with some of the patterns, because this full moon is going to set you free. This full moon, Leo full moon, is one of my favorite full moons because of this potent opportunity that we can dig a bit deeper within ourself, our authentic self, and really start to connect with who we truly are, what is really important for us, void of the ego, but in connection with our heart. Now, first, let's look at the Leo-Aquarius axis. There is a very strong tension between sovereignty and rebellion, the heart versus the mind, and the collective versus the personal. We are in fixed season, and these signs are both fixed. And there is a strong anchoring into these aspects with polarities at play. There can be a little bit of tension between some of these aspects as well. This truly is the interplay between self-actualization, the focus on self, and transpersonal evolution, the focus on the collective. So during the new moon in Aquarius, and as we are in Aquarius season, there has been a strong calling or a strong opportunity for us to work with our unique self, our individualistic self, while also thinking about the greater good, the collective community, how we can play our part in something more meaningful, something more progressive, and something more of an evolutionary process. However, Leo is going to invite us to look at ourself. How are we showing up in these dynamics? And with the full moon in Leo being a shadow component, we're going to look at what is getting in our way or what is creating resistance to the natural flow and rhythm with perhaps some of the new moon intentions you set, but also applying with Aquarius traits. But first of all, I do want to mention we have a universal month number 11-2 this month in February, which is very strong for our connecting with our intuition, our intuitive guidance, being very clear, being very aligned, but also, with the full moon, we may have dualities at play with our ego versus our vision versus our intuition. That's why this full moon, I feel, is going to be actually extra potent to work with so that we can get really clear with the interplay with maybe a bit of friction between our ego, maybe stubbornness or pridefulness or a need of control versus our higher self, our vision, our inner knowing, our alignment with our higher self and greatest potential. Now, Leo does have a beautiful opportunity for expression, for us to connect with how we want to express with others, what we want to create in the world based on our authenticity, our true self, and also a very strong connection with abundance. Leo is naturally a very generous archetype. Like I mentioned, it does have a very strong connection with the heart, so it can be very generous and very giving. Now we're going to look at the shadow traits soon, as this is going to play into some of the polarities that one may find themselves in when struggling between matters of the heart or shadowy egoic aspects that can come into the mix. As we venture closer to the full moon, take some time to really connect with the intentions you set during the new moon in Aquarius. What is getting in the way of you fully stepping into your own sense of self, your own sovereignty, your own ability to express or to lead or to take charge or to innovate and create? What is holding you back in some kind of way? Now, I'm going to go into some of the shadow traits. I'm going to go into some of the interplays with the ego because the ego aspect is going to be very closely tied to some of the shadow traits of Leo. But this is simply so that we can recognize some of our own internal patterns. Now, because we are working with the ego can be very strong. I did record a video on ego versus higher self. I highly suggest watching that video, as the ego can be extremely powerful to an extent where we don't even realize that it's affecting our daily life or how we react to life or what we're doing, our motivations behind our behavioral patterns, if you will. First of all, I'm going to go into the shadow traits of Leo, and then I'm going to go into specific shadow examples that you can integrate into your practice. Now, the examples that I'm going to give are general. You can take some of the examples and apply it to your own practice if you like. And in this case, in the full moon, this is all about sovereignty. And sovereignty is the release of the ego, it's the release of false patterns, it's the release of fear, it's the release of all these limitations that we have within ourselves so that we can show up more, so that we can express our authenticity, so that we can feel radiant, we can feel unapologetic. This is when we get to shine fully. Can you imagine yourself in that capacity? How does it feel to be radiant? How does it feel to be expressive? And radiant, I mean, not from the ego, by feeling confident with who you are, not needing validation or not diminishing your self-worth because of insecurities. Now imagine how amazing that would feel. So use this full moon. This is a beautiful, beautiful full moon. This is why I like it, because we are able to connect with who we truly are and also do a bit of reverse on it to see what is getting in the way of me really shining in my light, of being who I am and feeling comfortable in my own skin and expressing the essence of my true self. So what is getting in the way of you connecting with your true, authentic, vibrant, pure, and powerful self? You may also look at your relationship with abundance. This is going to come into some of the shadow aspects as well. When we are in the state of abundance with the flow, the natural flow of the universe, with the natural flow of energy, with the natural flow of life, we see abundance everywhere. We are able to look at the beauty of life, the abundance of life in what we're eating and what we're wearing and how we look, in the relationships, in nature, in our house. So you can invite abundance into your life in any area, in any place, at any time. And how does abundance feel when you bring it into yourself, when you feel regal, when you feel like you are in the full, vibrant, abundant expression of self? So you can imagine yourself bringing it into your practice as well. But again, also pay attention to what is the resistance in there that's getting in the way. Sometimes there's often shame about having money, about being successful. Sometimes there's fear and limitations about having more than maybe other people or family. So again, this is going to be up for you to be really specific with what is getting in the way of you being your full self and not worrying about other people, not worrying about responsibilities or feeling guilty, because that comes from the shadow. Those come from false beliefs, but you can address those too if they exist and if this applies to you, so that you can let them go. Okay, so the first shadow aspect that we can look at here is on the shadow side of Leo. Remember, this is part of the collective unconscious. I'm not calling anyone out here at all. We can all relate to maybe all of these, if not some of them, because we all share these traits within ourselves. Okay, the first one is going to be ego-driven intentions and attention seeking. This comes from the ego, and this comes from the fear-based wounded ego. When one does not feel confident within themselves, they feel that they need external validation and attention seeking in order for that validation, in order to feel accepted or in order to heal the wounds of low self-worth. Ego-driven responses and ego-driven motives come from fear, and this is going to be when someone is making choices and decisions based on something that may feel a bit harsh or direct, or maybe even out of fear or desperation or lack or scarcity. When we are in connection with our higher self, when we are aligned, we know within the bottom of our heart, within the pit of our stomach, within our body, within our soul, that our decisions, no matter how hard they are in alignment with our greatest good and highest potential. So you can play with some of these dynamics within yourself if they're resonating with you. The next is going to be an addiction for validation. This kind of goes into the attention seeking, where we may sometimes feel the need for external validation in order to be accepted, in order for approval, in order for us to feel that we have worth of some kind. But again, this is an external factor where we are really distorting the connection with our true self and our value that we can cultivate within ourselves first. The next is going to be emotional reactivity and drama. This is when the ego is very wounded and it can be dominating, wanting to fight for the spotlight or wanting to fight to be right. Also very impulsive with reactions to certain situations. Now, all the fixed signs can be like this. I find with this particular archetype, and actually all fixed signs, they can be very tolerant for quite some time and then very explosive all of a sudden, as if they can only tolerate so much. And then there's that breaking point, but that breaking point will come at a very strong, significant cost, where there could be a lot of drama, there could be a lot of reactivity to certain things that are very uncontrollable. And the final one is going to be control and possessiveness. Control will also be applicable to all the fixed signs just because of their ability to, I would say, fixate. I don't know what other word to say, but control is usually sort of part and parcel for the fixed signs. Now, this can also deteriorate relationships where, because Leo is a very generous sign, it can be very giving. It can also give in order to control a certain relationship, where in this particular case, there can be someone very giving and very generous, but there's a hidden motive under the surface. And this can be very unconsciously, where the person will feel that the other person owes them something, or they will eventually call the other person out for the generosity that was given, which is very manipulative and very controlling. And so that, again, this comes from a fear-based aspect of self, where one needs to seek control over relationships in order to feel safe and secure. Let's look at the positive aspects of Leo now, so we can understand where we can go once we address more of the shadow aspects. So Leo is naturally a very generous and giving and warm archetype, and we all have the ability to give from our heart without expectations. The more we give and the more worth we feel within ourselves, we will put ourselves in a higher state of creation, being able to give and receive in a very high level manner. This is where our doors of abundance are open. This is where we give without any expectations, but we are also in a state of abundance where we can create and we can be very magnetic for opportunities. Leo is also very confident. So where is there a lack of confidence? This is going to be, again, another great exercise to incorporate for your full moon. So you can focus on, where is there a lack of confidence? What is preventing you from shining brightly? What is preventing you from maybe taking charge and being bold and daring in some kind of way? What is holding you back from expressing your voice and feeling safe and comfortable being vulnerable and speaking from the heart? Passion is also a very positive trait of Leo. When Leo is shining bright and very passionate about what it loves, about being creative, it is a very creative force to work with. We can all access this passion within ourselves. Passion leads to creation. So naturally, Leo has this ability for us to access within ourselves once we understand what's getting in our way of accessing that passion within. Also, self-expression finally is going to be a really great trait to focus on or hone in on within yourself, of where are you shying away from expressing yourself authentically? What is holding you back, or what is getting in the way or preventing you from expressing your truth or showing up fully or sharing your vision, Aquarius, with the world in some kind of way? This is where we get to shake up a little bit within ourselves, so we can really align in a strong and direct way with the intentions that we set during the new moon in Aquarius. Not only investing in ourselves as sovereign, but thinking of what this can impact, or how this can impact the greater good and the collective. We have to also remember that accepting both the light and the dark within us is part of this practice. It's not being hard on ourselves if we notice our egoic side starting to creep up or starting to overtake our actions and our decisions and what we're saying and how we're behaving. It's simply acknowledging where this plays into our daily life, and especially during those heated moments. That's where the ego is going to be at its peak, but it also can show up in forms of self-sabotage and holding us back. The ego side is very strong, and the ego wants to basically claim its stake and claim its ownership over one's identity and behavioral patterns and even persona in many ways. Working with the ego does take quite a long time to understand this dynamic and this relationship within oneself. So do take some time during the full moon. During the full moon, I love to reflect and meditate. I do have a Leo meditation, which I will leave a link in the description box below. You can also join the Hive, which is on WhatsApp. It's a free group. We chat about these different phases, and it's a really great supportive environment. But take some time during the full moon to drop into your own practice. And again, don't feel frustrated or put any pressure or difficulty on yourself if you are experiencing some of these shadow aspects. It's simply dropping into the exercise of being the observer of yourself. And when we separate ourselves from being really connected with these harder aspects of ourself, of the ego, we get to see ourselves from a new perspective. We get to shift our perspective on ourself and on our reality. And that's where we get to shift. That's where we get to heal and move on from being really entangled and enmeshed in this egoic relationship or in the relationship with our shadow or our false beliefs. So take time during the full moon. You can, again, meditate, you can journal, write down some of these patterns or limitations or fears that are getting in the way. You could go even deeper and see where they originated if you want to deepen your practice to find the origin belief or the origin situations or circumstances that led to the behavior or led to a certain belief or fear or resistance of any kind. That might also deepen your practice and help you find the patterns deeper within. As I mentioned, a meditation to release, a release meditation, writing it on paper. You can burn the paper, light a sage to clear your space, to give space for the new. And after this full moon, as we move into the waning gibbous, you just want to slowly allow yourself to release and let go. The full moon can shake up a lot within yourself, and there may be time for integration needed after the full moon. So just allow for everything to do what it needs to do. When you work deeper with the unconscious self, it does need time for integration, and it's a slow process for the mind, the body, the spirit, the heart as well to align and find its way as you move forward. All right, so I hope this video offered you some guidance for your full moon in Leo. I'm wishing you all the best during this time and beyond. Don't forget to find us over at the Hive. I hope to see you there, and I'll see you again here very soon. Take care.